The subcommittee will come to order. The chairman recognizes himself for an opening statement. Again, good morning, everyone, and welcome to our markup of the SCORE Act. I'm proud to lead this bipartisan legislation alongside the full committee chairs, of course, Energy and Commerce, Chairman Guthrie, Education and Workforce, and Judiciary, and my other esteemed colleagues, especially Representatives Bynum, Figures, and Fry. This committee has a rich history of thoughtful and bipartisan engagement in college sports and name, image, likeness policy. We've worked across party lines, not just to legislate, but to understand what is truly at stake: the health, safety, and future of student athletes. We can all agree. Going back to the 114th Congress, we saw leadership from then Chair Upton on concussion safety. In the 116th Congress, then Chair Pallone and Ranking Member Walden jointly sought input on the emerging NIL landscape from stakeholders across the country, grounded in the idea that good policy begins with good listening. In the 118th Congress, then Chair McMorris Rogers and I continued taking feedback from stakeholders with the intent of creating a national framework to protect our student athletes and create a sustainable future for college sports. Many of these inputs went into our first NIL legislative hearing last year on the draft bill, the Fair College Sports Act. Since then, we've continued that spirit of listening and engagement this Congress. We hosted 2 subcommittee hearings, convened multiple bipartisan roundtables, and received input from hundreds of voices across the college sports ecosystem. It's an ecosystem, including from student athletes, coaches, athletic directors, compliance officials, and conference commissioners, and legal experts. We've also worked in close coordination with other committees and members on both sides of the aisle to craft a bill that reflects broad consensus. The result of all this work is the SCORE Act, a comprehensive bipartisan solution that upholds the integrity of college sports and strengthens protections for student athletes who make it all possible. It provides common sense guardrails around the transfer portal and agent disclosure, ensuring students are supported, not exploited, as they navigate life-changing decisions. I'm honored to lead an important, thoughtful, and carefully crafted bill along with Chairman Guthrie. I will be the first to say not everyone is going to get 100% of what they want in this bill, but time is of the essence, folks. I want to say it again, time is of the essence. It is long past time that we take action to ensure that we have a sustainable future for college sports, especially for women's sports and the Olympic sports, that creates predictability and certainty for all student athletes. We must act now to protect and preserve the uniquely American institution of college sports we have all come to know and love. Thank you to my colleagues for their collaboration and commitment to student athletes. So I look forward to continuing our work as we move the SCORE Act forward. So I'll yield back, and now I recognize the chairwoman, who is the ranking member of the subcommittee, Ms. Schakowsky, from the great state of Illinois, for 5 minutes. You're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's a pleasure to be with you, and I agree that the most important thing right now is the health and safety of our student athletes. We have to make sure that we prevent them from any harm, and and I'm concerned about that, and I don't think this piece of legislation that has been promoted and offered is not the one that will actually do what we need to do to protect our athletes. And so I think we need to review what is it?
The SCORE Act.
The SCORE Act, and come up with something that really looks at the athletes. Concerned that we're doing more in the recommendation for the NCAA that we're doing for the athletes themselves. And so I would like to see a real examination of the piece of legislation and focus mostly, entirely, on how this protects our student athletes. And with that, I'll yield back.
Thank you. The gentlelady yields back, and the chairman now recognizes the chairman of the full committee, Mr. Guthrie, for 5 minutes for his opening statement.
Thank you, Chairman Bill Rockus, for your leadership on the SCORE Act, and to all of our colleagues who joined as original co-leagues, Reps Bynum, Figures, Wahlberg, Jordan, Fry, Fitzgerald, and McLean. Your commitment to bipartisan collaboration has been essential to crafting this thoughtful and comprehensive legislation. H.R. 4312, the SCORE Act, is a bipartisan product of extensive collaboration across 3 House committees: Energy and Commerce, Education and Workforce, and the Judiciary. This legislation marks a significant step forward in providing a clear federal framework for the name, image, and likeness marketplace in college athletics. College athletics have yielded presidents, entrepreneurs, and community leaders, but the fractured NIL landscape that has developed in recent years has left athletes, schools, and conferences without certainty or guardrails. Across the country, athletic departments are trying to compete in a system that is anything but fair or stable, where chaos makes it difficult to understand, let alone meet their compliance obligations. The patchwork of state-level NIL laws, inconsistent policies, and continuous court challenges have created confusion and competitive imbalances across college sports. Just last month, we saw a major milestone with the approval of the House settlement, signaling a new era in college athletics. The SCORE Act builds upon this momentum by delivering the protections, clarity, and uniformity that student athletes, institutions, and fans have long been asking for. Student athletes get additional protections, universities get the stability they need to plan for the future, and fans can continue building relationships with the players they support. This legislation will ensure that the integrity of college sports is maintained while leveling the playing field and providing nationwide consistency. This legislation guarantees that student athletes receive essential benefits to support their education, health, and long-term success. It protects student athletes from bad actor agents and allows for rules that stabilize college sports to be enforced. With revenue sharing as the new norm in college athletics, we must ensure that all athletic programs, from powerhouse football teams to smaller sports, have the tools to thrive. This legislation represents a balanced, bipartisan solution to one of the most pressing issues in college athletics. I'm proud of our work and look forward to restoring college athletics for students, schools, and fans. I yield back.
Thank you. I appreciate it, Mr. Chairman. Now I'll recognize the ranking member of the full committee, Mr. Pallone, for his 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. With all due respect to you and my colleagues, I do not think this markup is a good use of the subcommittee's time. We in Congress should be focused on the very real threats to our nation's colleges and universities, as well as everyday Americans under the Trump administration. A day rarely goes by when the Trump administration is not attacking colleges and universities. Trump continues to destroy America's higher education system with reduced federal research dollars, taxes on endowments, and cuts to federal student aid. His latest effort to interfere with college accreditation is particularly outrageous. And let's be clear, the fundamental threat to colleges and universities is not college athletes finally being able to profit from their talent. The real threat to our nation's colleges and universities is coming from inside the White House, starting with the Trump administration's attempts to cut billions in research funding from the National Institutes of Health. This has left colleges and universities across the country scrambling to figure out how they're going to continue their life-saving research on cancer, heart disease, children's health, and many more items. And these cuts, as well as reductions in graduate student funding included in President Trump's big ugly bill, are forcing colleges and universities to wrestle with how to fund their graduate research and science programs, which endangers our nation's global leadership in science and medical research for generations to come. And these are major crises, yet Republicans are ignoring them and instead would rather talk about college sports. Now, we've held countless hearings about college sports over the last few years. In every hearing, we've heard that for decades, the National Collegiate Athletic Association, or NCAA, failed to put the health, safety, and financial interests of college athletes first. Every witness has said that allowing college athletes to profit from their name, image, and likeness is a good thing and represents a long overdue change in college sports. Changing the rules so that college athletes can finally profit from their name, image, and likeness was a hard-fought victory won by college athletes, not by congressional action, but through the courts and the state legislatures. So last month, the federal court approved a historic settlement in House versus NCAA, in which the NCAA agreed for the first time to allow schools to pay college athletes directly for the talent those athletes bring to the schools, the conferences, and the NCAA. And those payments are subject to a salary cap of $20.5 million per school. But instead of celebrating progress made by college athletes, the SCORE Act shuts down their ability to seek additional protection in the courts and state legislatures. It even gives the NCAA and conferences unchecked authority to roll back many of the hard-fought benefits college athletes have won in the courts and state legislatures. The bill reduces the amount of money college athletes can make from their talent, but allows schools to spend unlimited amounts of money on coaches, trainers, fancy athletic facilities, private planes for team travel, and other inducements to help recruit and retain the most talented college athletes. And this is not how you, quote, level the playing field. The SCORE Act also gives the NCAA nearly limitless and unchecked authority to govern every aspect of college athletics, including how college athletes can get paid, what happens when they want to transfer schools more than once, and how many hours they can spend training, traveling to competitions, and competing. Rather than offering college athletes new, strong, enforceable protections, the SCORE Act offers window dressing to address health and safety concerns and purposely eliminates the ability of college athletes and law enforcement authorities to enforce violations of even these weak protections. The bill also fails to include meaningful protections to help ensure college athletes don't hire predatory agents, and it doesn't provide pathways for relief if they do. Instead, it simply allows the NCAA and conferences to require agents to register with those institutions. And that is not going to do anything to help college athletes and could create a false sense of security regarding the integrity of registered agents. We should not be doing anything that stifles the progress being won by the college athlete. The landscape of modern college sports is well on its way to being developed by these recent court decisions, and Congress should allow that work to play out. Don't get in the way. College sports and the opportunities it provides for young athletes cannot exist, though, and I want to emphasize that, cannot exist without colleges. If President Trump succeeds in destroying the American college and university system, which he seems determined to do, there will be no college sports. I don't know if anyone realizes that, but you have to have a college to have college sports. And the way we're going with this administration, I don't even know if there are going to be any colleges or universities or any worth fighting for once he destroys them. So with that, I yield back the balance of my time. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Gentleman yields back. The chair reminds members that pursuant to the committee rules, all members' opening statements will be part of the record. Are there any further opening statements? Yes. Ms. Trahan, you're recognized for 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, I appreciate you taking the time yesterday to meet with me to discuss the SCORE Act and to hear the concerns that I, along with many of my colleagues, have about this legislation. As currently drafted, the SCORE Act would grant sweeping power to the NCAA and athletic conferences, power that comes at the expense of the very athletes who make college sports possible. Even more concerning, when those organizations overreach or abuse that power, and history has shown that they surely will, this bill would shield them entirely from lawsuits, from state laws, and from enforcement by the FTC or state attorneys general. At the same time, the bill is silent on some of the most urgent challenges facing college athletes today. It offers no relief to the thousands of women who are denied roster spots because schools exploit loopholes in Title IX. It provides no solution for international athletes who were barred from pursuing the same NIL opportunities as their American teammates simply because of their visa status. And it falls short in protecting athletes who suffer long-term injuries, offering only limited medical coverage that fails to address the physical, mental, and financial consequences they face years after their athletic careers end. Now, Mr. Chairman, it's no secret that I am a no on this bill in its current form, but that doesn't mean that we can't find common ground. In fact, there are provisions in the SCORE Act that I support, like the clear definition of agents and new guardrails against their ability to enter athletes into predatory NIL contracts. That's a constructive improvement, and it should serve as the foundation for serious bipartisan negotiations on a bill that stabilizes college sports. But we can't do that by returning power to those who abused it for a century. We should do it by finally guaranteeing college athletes the rights, protections, and seats at the table that they've been denied for far too long. If that's the direction we take, I believe you'll find significant support from our side of the aisle. I thank the chair for yielding and for his willingness to work together on this bill, and I yield back the balance of my time.
Thank you. I appreciate it, Ms. Strahan. And I will say this, yeah, we had a productive conversation yesterday, and I welcome other members to come to my office and discuss. I think we can find some common ground if we work together. But this bill is a good, solid bill, and I believe it protects student athletes. All right, any opening statements over here on this side? Any from additional opening statements? Kathy Castor, you're recognized from the great state of Florida.
Yeah, thank
You're
you.
recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
3 minutes.
Members, I think the ranking member is correct. There is a lot of cognitive dissonance right now when we're talking about higher education. And I know we want the best for our student athletes, but gosh, when you take a step back and look at what is happening across the administration and in Congress today, you can't help but be fearful of what it means for all students and for our institutions of higher learning, from our community colleges to the other colleges to the large universities. I mean, the big ugly bill that just passed a week ago makes it more difficult for students to obtain a Pell Grant, to obtain college and get on that ladder of opportunity in life. It kneecaps student loans, especially for graduate students. Everything that's been going on in this administration to take a hammer to our scientific enterprise. All of the grad students that this summer they were hoping to really work on their research projects, but those grants aren't there because they've been illegally cut by this administration. I talked to a lot of students back in the Tampa Bay area, at HCC, at St. Pete College, at the University of South Florida, University of Tampa, Ecker College, and other. I know you all do too. And they see the opportunities shrinking for the ability to get that college degree. So then, yes, this is important. I mean, college sports, I so admire all the college athletes, the student athletes who give all of their time and talents. It sure is fun. And now with the House settlement, there is a newfound opportunity for students to ensure that they have certain rights and can control their name, image, and likeness. But college sports is a big business as well. We're talking billions of dollars. So it is important to get this right. I think the version right now, there are a whole host of questions about preemption, about the ability of student athletes to be protected in all of this. So let's not rush this through. I think we can get to a bipartisan place where we're able to balance the interests of colleges and universities with the student athletes, to make sure that they can achieve, realize their freedom and everything that comes from their talents and their time. But let's not move a one-sided bill that creates a lot of problems for these student athletes and the institutions back home that we care about. Thank you. I yield back my time.
Gentlelady yields back. Any further opening statements on this side? No? Okay. All right. The chair calls up H.R. 4312 and asks the clerk to report.
H.R. 4312, a bill to protect the name, image, and likeness rights of student athletes and to promote fair competition with respect to intercollegiate athletics and for other purposes.
Without objection, the first reading of the bill is dispensed with, and the bill will be open for amendment at any point. So ordered. Does anyone seek recognition on the bill?
Mr. Chairman.
On the bill? Okay. Yeah. All right, you're recognized, sir. Mr. Fry from the great state of South Carolina.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move to strike the last word.
Thank you. Gentleman's recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for holding this markup today on the SCORE Act, and thank you to all who played a very pivotal role in developing this much-needed legislation, both from the Energy and Commerce Committee, the Judiciary Committee, Ed and Workforce, and all the outside entities, the student athletes that really had a hand in shaping the dialogue around NIL. College sports are deeply embedded in our culture. They're a cherished part of our national identity, bringing communities together, creating lifelong memories for millions of fans, and providing incredible opportunities for student athletes across the country. The introduction of NIL has opened the door for exciting new possibilities for athletics and athletes. However, without clear rules and an enforcement mechanism, the NIL landscape has become akin to the Wild West, as many of you have talked about. The lack of structure is unsustainable and unfair to the athletes, to the schools, and to the integrity of college sports itself. The SCORE Act is a bipartisan piece of legislation that provides much-needed guardrails. It ensures student athletes can benefit from their NIL while also protecting the broader ecosystem of collegiate athletics. Establishing school liability protections ensures compliance with fair rules and reduces the threat of frivolous lawsuits that strain university budgets and jeopardize athletic programs themselves. Its federal preemption provision ensures that we have one consistent national framework, putting an end to the patchwork of conflicting state laws and conflicting court rulings. If Congress fails to act, the future of college sports could be at risk. This bill preserves what makes college athletics so special. It protects women's sports, Olympic sports, and non-revenue generating sports. It reaffirms that student athletes are just that, students, not employees of the university, preserving the amateur spirit that distinguishes college sports from professional athletes. I fully support student athletes being able to profit from their name, image, and likeness, but I do not support a system without rules where everyone is left to fend for themselves without accountability. As a proud member of both the E&C Committee and the Judiciary Committee, I've appreciated the opportunity to work alongside my colleagues and our dedicated staff in shaping the SCORE Act. I commend the chairs and the committee teams for their leadership and their tireless efforts in bringing this thoughtful, bipartisan legislation forward. With that, Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
I appreciate gentleman yields back. Anyone wish to speak on the bill? Ms. Dingell, you're recognized for 5 minutes to speak on the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move to strike the last word.
You're recognized.
Let me begin by saying I support this process. We are in a new era of college sports, and this committee has an opportunity to help get this right. Sports matters to me, my district, and the state of Michigan, and I appreciate the work that's gone into this so far. And as my colleague just stated, college athletics are deeply embedded in the fabric of communities across the country. They bring people together, instill lifelong values, and open doors to opportunity. I am lucky to represent two major universities, University of Michigan and Eastern Michigan University, but two very different institutions with very different athletic programs. I've seen firsthand the power of sports to inspire, educate, and uplift, but I've also heard from athletes, especially those in non-revenue sports, who worry that without any real guardrails, the future of college athletics could be in real jeopardy. I've spoken to so many athletes who say I'm the only person who's come up to them and asked them how they feel about all this and what they want. A couple of weeks ago, I found myself on the main street of Ann Arbor at an event with our athletic director, who quickly disappeared from the event, the Dingell way, and left me with the new quarterback on the University of Michigan team, Bryce Underwood. Don't forget the name. We're going to be champions again, guys. But I talked to Bryce for a couple hours. He ended up being my bodyguard date. And he said to me, nobody ever talks to us. Nobody ever asks us what we think. These are our lives, but nobody gives us the facts or asks our opinion. Too often, these athletes' voices are overlooked and dismissed. Their perspectives have shaped how I view this topic, and they deserve to be at the center of the conversation. What we see under the lights on Saturday nights or during March Madness is just a piece of the puzzle. The reality for most college athletes, the overwhelming majority, will never go pro, and it's very different. For a majority of college athletes, college sports are not just about competition. They're about education, leadership, and lifelong opportunity. And that's what's at stake here. We need a national framework, one with clarity and real enforcement to bring fairness, transparency, and equity to the new NIL era. We've already seen states competing with one another to get a leg up, and that patchwork is threatening the values and the balance that makes college sports so special. This bill has made real progress. I appreciate the chair's ongoing conversations and dialogue. It protects the NIL rights of college athletes. It increases the transparency of NIL agreements and agent registration. It's made progress, but we need more on greater health and academic protections, and it codifies some long overdue standards. These were meaningful steps forward, but there's a lot more work we've got to do. Title IX must be at the center of this conversation. We cannot allow new compensation models to widen the gap between men and women's sports. We need stronger gender equity protections written into law to ensure all athletes have equal opportunities and support. And I'm lucky I've got the wisdom of a number of women coaches who have been in this game for a long time. We need their input and thoughts, and they are worried. We must preserve the breadth of college sports, including non-revenue and Olympic sports. At a school like the University of Michigan, the revenue from football and men's basketball helps sustain more than 24 other varsity sports. And that model also supports thousands of athletes and fuels our Olympic pipeline. We are the only country in the world that does not help its Olympians prepare and train. And we are threatening our Olympic pipeline. That structure's at risk. Athletic representation must be real, and this is something that really matters. College athletes from revenue and non-revenue sports at large and small schools deserve a seat at the table. They need and have the right to a voice in the decisions that impact their futures and protections around things like medical care, academic support, NIL, and revenue sharing. We need real transparency and accountability. I'm running out of time, so I'm going to say that the antitrust exemption must be narrow and justified. You can't have it so that if someone has been, as it was at the University of Michigan, abused by their doctor, that the athletes can't seek justice. We've made good progress thus far in this bill, and I want to thank my colleagues on the other side of the aisle, from the ranking member and the chairman, that we can keep working together to get this right for the full committee. Thank you, and I yield back.
Well, you have my assurances. The gentlelady yields back that we'll continue to work together, and I believe we probably satisfied most of your concerns, but we can make a very good bill even better. So thank you very much. Anyone else here on our side, on the Republican side? Yes, Mr. Bentz. You're recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for this bill.
Of
and
course.
I want to compliment the, to the bill. I'll get this right language here. Strike the last word. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to begin by thanking staff and fellow members for the excellent work done on this bill. And I see clearly the need for the guardrails that have been referenced in previous presentations. I also see the essential need for incredible care that I believe has been exercised in crafting this bill. And that, by that I mean this is a business, an incredibly huge and valuable business to this nation and to the colleges that enjoy college football programs and to others. It seems to me that the enthusiasm expressed by some who have participated in these conversations is reflective of the fact that they're in positions of power, and the fear that I've seen expressed by other colleges reflects the fact that they're not. And this have and have not situation is incredibly challenging, and one I look forward to further discussions on during the course of this week before our next meeting on Wednesday. I am hopeful that we'll be able to address some of the issues that I've raised previously and that we've heard mentioned this morning. And I think we absolutely need to do something in this space, and it may well be this bill. But I must say, there are concerns being expressed by colleges in my state that give me pause, and I look forward to discussing those with you, Mr. Chair. And I think we can probably reach some solution that fits this space. I have to say, the power that we enjoy here in Congress, if that's the right word for it, the responsibility for carving out exceptions to antitrust law and for providing preemptions is enormous, and once granted, hard to reel back in. And therefore, I look forward to the conversations that we've been having, and look forward to next week. But today is a very, very important day, I think, for both the haves and the have-nots. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yield back.
I appreciate it very much. The gentleman yields back, and I look forward to the conversations as well. We want to address your concerns. This is the way the process is supposed to work. All right, next is Ms. Clarke. You're recognized for 5 minutes for your, not an opening statement, but you're going to discuss the bill. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I move to strike the last word. Thank you. We are here today to consider the SCORE Act, but a title like the NCAA Wish List Act would better reflect its true objectives. Just like big tech, the automotive industry, the energy sector, and many more, college athletics has become a multi-billion-dollar industry. And much like those other industries, the entrenched powers of college sports have the expertise and financial resources to advocate for their interests here in the Capitol and across the country. Unfortunately, the vast majority of college athletes do not have the same ability to engage lobbyists and public affairs professionals. That sad reality is clearly demonstrated in the bill before us today. This bill fails to protect college athletes and look out for their best interests. In particular, I am deeply troubled by the antitrust exemption this bill would provide the NCAA and other athletic conferences. Let me remind you all that antitrust lawsuits brought by current and former players are the sole reason athletes have been able to achieve the gains of the last few years. And if history is any guide, the NCAA and other athletic conferences simply cannot be trusted with creating fair guidelines that protect students and college athletes' ability to profit off their own name, image, and likeness. We simply cannot turn to the same entities that created the broken, inequitable system of the past to serve as the stewards of a new system. We are already seeing the folly in this thinking play out with the newly created College Sports Commission, as proposed deals are rejected out of hand due to its decision to arbitrarily decide that college athletes cannot accept certain appearance fees, which seems fundamental to monetizing the value of one's name, image, and likeness. So let's be honest about what's happening in the wake of the House v. NCAA settlement. Major universities and conferences, frustrated by donors directing funds to NIL collectives and players, are seizing on this moment to recoup lost fundraising dollars. This bill would codify an arbitrary cap on revenue sharing payments made to players directly from universities, regardless of how much a university is profiting from their athletes' talent. This bill would also codify provisions in the House settlement, making it much more difficult for players to sign other NIL deals. This is patently unfair. Furthermore, this bill would also foolishly preempt state laws around NIL and college athletics more broadly, which, along with antitrust lawsuits, ushered in this new era of equity and player empowerment. The blanket ban on employment status for college athletes is also unnecessary at this stage and only serves to further undermine the rights of the college athletes that have built this multi-billion-dollar industry. I understand the pressure certain members are facing to do something on college athletics. It is big business in many districts across the country. But let's remember what's really at stake here: the ability for young people to participate in the free market just like anyone else. It is that simple. I urge my colleagues to reject the NCAA Wish List Act, and if we must do something, let's do something that actually serves the players rather than reverting to an unfair systems of the past. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I yield back.
General Lady yields back. Any further discussion on the bill? On this side, any further discussion on the bill? All right, well, let's move to the amendatory process. So for what purpose does the General Lady seek recognition?
Mr. Chairman, I have an amendment at the desk.
The clerk will report the amendment.
Mr. Chairman, could the gentlelady please specify the amendment?
Yes, it's 431201.
Amendment to HR 4312, offered by Mr. Han, page 2, strike line 12, and all that follows through line 17.
Mr.
Without
Chairman,
objection,
Mr. Chairman, I
the
reserve a
reading of
point
the
of order.
amendment is dispensed with.
I reserve a point of order.
Okay. Gentleman reserves a point of order. Without objection, the reading of the amendment is dispensed with, and the gentlelady is recognized for 5 minutes in support of her amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This amendment is simple. It strikes 3 provisions from this legislation that, when considered together in their current form, place significant restrictions on college athletes' ability to advocate for themselves. First, this amendment strikes the sweeping antitrust exemption that would allow the NCAA and conferences to adopt and enforce rules against athletes, no matter how harmful, no matter how absurd, without fear of being challenged in court. Now, all of the progress that we've seen in college sports in recent years on NIL, revenue sharing, and investments in women's championships, it didn't happen because the NCAA had a change of heart. It didn't happen because conferences stepped up or college presidents suddenly decided to do the right thing. It happened because athletes sued, resulting in rulings, settlements, and public pressure that forced the NCAA to change. And it's worth remembering just how hard the NCAA fought to stop them. In the Johnson v. NCAA case just last year, attorneys for the NCAA actually cited the 13th Amendment's slavery exception, as they had multiple times before to argue that college athletes are more like prison labor than employees. That was in 2024. That's who we want to hand a permanent antitrust liability exemption to? No guardrails, no sunset. Just total trust in the very institution that has fought tooth and nail to deny athletes their rights at every turn? Now, don't get me wrong, the NCAA has done some good things, particularly since President Baker took the helm. But where's the guarantee that that continues after he leaves? What if the next NCAA president goes back to business as usual? Second, this amendment strikes the provision that would codify into law for the first time that college athletes can never be considered employees. To be clear, right now, not a single college athlete is an employee, not of their school or their conference or the NCAA. And there is no pending case before the National Labor Relations Board seeking to change that. This provision is not a response to an urgent problem. If, and only if, athletes someday seek employee status, and if a court or board agrees, it will be because of how they're treated, the hours, the restrictions, the control over their lives. But this provision says it doesn't matter how they're treated. It slams the door shut forever, including on the right to collectively bargain, even if they want to do so without asking for compensation. And finally, this amendment strikes the provision that preempts all state NIL laws and blocks states from doing more to protect college athletes. The broad preemption language sets a low ceiling for athletes' rights and what states can do to protect them, one that states can't go above, even if they're trying to, for example, expand the health provisions included in the SCORE Act. This amendment will ensure that should this bill become law, it won't turn back the clock on athletes by handing power back to the NCAA to operate above the law. And I urge my colleagues to vote yes on this amendment. I yield back the balance of my time.
Yes, the gentleman will state his point of order.
I insist on the point of order, Mr. Chairman. The amendment violates Rule 10, Clause 1F of the House Rules because it is outside the scope of this committee's jurisdiction. Specifically, Ms. Trahan's amendment addresses the employment standing of college athletes, which is outside the scope of this committee's jurisdiction. The amendment is out of order.
Thank you. Does anybody, any other member wish to be heard on the amendment? Yes, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
The SCORE Act shuts down college athletes' ability to assert their rights or seek protections in the courts and state legislatures or through collective bargaining. And this leaves athletes with almost no path to protect themselves and strips them of the rights enjoyed by every other American. So I support Representative Trahan's amendment striking the 3 sections of the SCORE Act that deny college athletes their rights and give the NCAA and conferences a blank check to reinstate decades of exploitation. I urge my colleagues to support this amendment. I yield back the balance of my time, Mr. Chairman.
All right, anyone, any further discussion on the amendment?
No, on the point of order.
On the point of order, on the point of order, on the point of order. Yes, okay, you're recognized.
Mr. Chairman, we're literally at the
From the great
committee
state of
hearing,
Florida.
reviewing this bill with all these provisions in here. How could it possibly be that you take away, that you're taking away the ability to amend the bill in this committee when it's clearly within our jurisdiction? It's paradoxical.
Okay, thank you. The chair is ready to rule. Mr. Fry makes a point of order of that amendment offered.
Mr. Chairman, there is additional comments.
There are additional comments on that. On the point of order. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes, okay, you're recognized, Ms. Castor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have just a fundamental question because I know that pieces of the bill are in 3 different committees, in the Energy and Commerce, and 2, not Judiciary for some reason. Okay, so in Education and Workforce and in Energy and Commerce. But there's a lot of overlap when it comes to how a lot of these provisions are going to work together. For example, I have a fundamental question about Title IX. And I can just, of course, everyone understands Title IX is the federal law that prohibits sex-based discrimination in education, requires schools to offer equitable opportunities to women in athletics. Is it your intent in this bill to ensure that Title IX remains the law of the land and not have the new NIL and compensation provisions override Title IX? I mean, that's kind of a fundamental question on whether we move forward on all sorts of things, preemption and the liability protection and.
Okay, the chair is ready to rule.
Or if you can't answer that question about the legislative intent, maybe ask the council on that.
Yeah, why don't we do that? No. Okay. Again, outside of
Mr. Chairman?
the committee's jurisdiction.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
may I, so this is going to be in 2 committees. So the Title IX has 3, well, it's 2, I think there are going to be 2 markups. There's 3 committees, 2 markups. And Ed and Workforce is going to mark up the Title IX part of this legislation next week. I think they're scheduled. I don't know if that's been posted yet or not, but that's my understanding.
Right, there's no, as I read the bill, there's no reference to Title IX, and I understand Chairman Guthrie, that is the jurisdiction of the Education and Workforce Committee. But this is kind of a fundamental question for how this bill is going to operate. Will Title IX remain the overriding law, or do these new compensation formulas and NIL, is it your intent to supersede Title IX?
No, it is not the intent at all to supersede. If you'll yield to Title IX, the Title IX should remain and completely want to ensure, if there's any question, that Title IX remains in full effect.
And that Title IX would take precedence over any of the formulas established in this bill, that there will still be that fundamental requirement for equity in athletics.
Obviously, that'll be in workforce next, but yeah, that's certainly the intent of this side of the aisle, that when that comes to an education workforce, Title IX is in full effect. We don't want to undermine Title IX. There's no intent to do that.
Maybe, and maybe we can agree to work on that with the other committee going forward to clarify that. Would you all, Mr. Bilirakis, would you, and Mr. Chairman Guthrie, would you?
I'll work with you. I will tell you that this is irrelevant to the point of order, though, at hand, this discussion of the bill. So, again, but I will definitely work with you and also the chairman of the Ed and Workforce Committee.
Do you want to yield?
I'll yield to you.
So if you look at just the House settlement, one of the big concerns is that the $20 million with some number for inflation that is distributed is a concern. It would all go, if you're Alabama, it all goes to football. If you're Kentucky, it all goes to basketball. And so that traditional Olympic sports or other sports would be left out. And so this bill actually maintains, I think it's 16, that each school has to maintain 16 athletic programs. So they can't just say, all right, we're going to be a football school, we're going to do a basketball school, and forget all the others. And Title IX would still apply, that they have to be equitable as it was before, is my full understanding of it.
Will the gentleman yield? Oh, I'm sorry.
And
I think it's the lady, my friend from Florida's time, but yeah.
Yes, I have another point on that.
But you have a fair point, but we want to make sure that's addressed. I believe
And
this bill is stronger than the settlement.
Right, and
that way.
there's the pot of money to be distributed, and then there's the other outside NIL deals that student athletes would be.
Yeah, students
And
can
I want to
have
make
their
sure that Title IX is going to apply to both of those.
I guess that would be a
The
workforce
overarch-
question,
that
but the
it's-
intent would be that it does. Yeah.
But I'll yield to Rep. Tran.
Thank you. Thank you. I just want to make sure that when we're talking about the forward-looking precedent-setting of the House settlement and the $22.5 million, we have some universities who are actually using the backward-looking distribution of the House settlement that does not account for Title IX, right? It's 90% going to football and basketball. The remaining 10% is split between all other men's sports and then all women's sports. And so I think, to the Congresswoman from Florida's point, is Title IX going to be the law of the land, and is it your intention that those distributions and the revenue share will be compliant with current law?
You know, I'll leave that with Chairman Walberg, but we will work together on that if you would like to work together. I just don't know the Title IX answers that you're asking, but I know that's going to be in Ed Workforce next week, but we will work with you to get there.
Thank you very much, because it's fundamental to moving forward a bill of this scope and impact.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Agreed. I'm willing to work with you as well, as you know. The chair is ready to rule. Mr. Fry makes a point of order that the amendment offered by Ms. Trahan is beyond the scope of the committee's jurisdiction. Rule 10 provides for the jurisdictional scope of each committee of the House that determines what legislation may be considered by each of the committees. The chair finds that the amendment goes beyond the scope of this committee's jurisdiction and therefore not in order. The point of order is sustained. Okay, are there any further amendments? Yes, Ms. Clarke, you're recognized.
Mr. Chairman, I have an amendment at the desk labeled
You
amend.
are recognized.
Thank you, sir. My amendment is
Clerk will
labeled,
report the amendment. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, if you can discuss it with the
Yeah, I was going to
Yeah,
tell him
go
what
ahead.
amendment
So
it
make
is.
sure that he knows which one you're talking about. Yeah,
Okay, here we go.
okay.
Amend 4312-02-XML, underscore, excuse me.
The clerk will report the amendment.
Amendment to HR 4312, page 2, strike line 12 and all that follows through line 17. Page 25, strike
Without
line
objection, the reading of the amendment is dispensed with, and the gentlelady is recognized for 5
Mr.
minutes.
Chair, I reserve a
for
point of
her
order.
amendment. The gentleman reserves a point of order.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, I move to strike the last word to speak on.
You are recognized.
Thank you. As I've said before, I'm deeply troubled by the antitrust exemption this bill would provide the NCAA and other athletic conferences. Let me remind you all that antitrust lawsuits brought by current and former players are the reason athletes have been able to achieve the gains of the last few years. And if history is any guide, the NCAA and other athletic conferences simply cannot be trusted with creating fair guidelines that protect college athletes and their abilities to profit from their own name, image, and likeness. We simply cannot turn to the same entities that created the broken, inequitable system of the past to serve as the stewards of a new system. We are already seeing the folly in this thinking play out with the newly created College Sports Commission, as proposed NIL deals are rejected out of hand due to its decision to arbitrarily decide that college athletes cannot accept certain appearance fees, which seems fundamental to monetizing the value of one's name, image, and likeness. And to pair this antitrust exemption with a broad preemption of state law, which would prevent state attorneys general, local law enforcement, and college athletes and their families from bringing causes of action under state law when the NCAA and the conferences make serious mistakes, is the wrong move. When college athletes are sexually assaulted by their coaches or trainers, something we have seen before, they should have a cause of action in state court. When college athletes die on the practice field because of heat stroke, something we have seen before, their families should be able to go to court to seek justice and to help make sure that this doesn't happen to other people. Let's empower college athletes instead of giving the NCAA everything on its wish list without regard to the consequences of doing so. With that, Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Thank you. The gentleman yields back. Any further discussion on the amendment? Mr. Fry, you're recognized.
Mr. Chairman, I withdraw my point of order and I move to strike the last word.
You're recognized.
Mr. Chairman, I oppose this amendment because it would allow the current Wild West that college athletics has right now to continue to wreak havoc on our institutions and our student athletes. The antitrust liability in Section 7 is necessary to provide stability and clarity for the athletic ecosystem. If they are constantly facing litigation, their budgets will change, and this will lead to cuts in non-revenue generating sports. This protection is conditional with compliance with the SCORE Act, which allows interstate intercollegiate athletic associations to create and enforce rules that are narrowly tailored to issues including NIL, transfers, and eligibility. The NCAA, conferences, and schools have voiced that they are not asking for a blanket liability shield, but they need room to breathe. They need that oxygen. The SCORE Act allows for this while still providing necessary accountability. Lastly, this bill needs strong preemption because a patchwork of state laws is unsustainable and leads to competitive disadvantages. Without this preemption, athletes in different states will face unequal opportunities, confusing standards and enforcement gaps, undermining both competition and the athletic programs themselves. I urge my colleagues to vote no, and I yield back.
Any further discussion on this side of the amendment? Yeah, Ms. Castor, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a few questions because this is a very broad preemption of state laws and then an antitrust exemption. And some outside groups have raised significant concerns that the preemption clause in the current draft not only stops states from enacting or enforcing laws, rules, regulations, requirements, or standards, but it also allows any defendant to get lawsuits dismissed by asserting preemption. So I wonder, counsel, is that the operation of the text of the current SCORE Act? Say, for example, if an athlete wanted to bring a claim for sexual harassment. And state law currently allows them to do that. Would the SCORE Act preempt them from being able to bring that kind of suit?
Thank you for the question. Section 10 on page 29 reads that no state or political subdivision of a state may maintain, enforce, prescribe, or continue in effect any law, rule, regulation, requirement, standard, or other provision having the force and effect of law that governs or regulates the compensation, payment, benefits, employment status, or eligibility of a student athlete, including a prospective student athlete, with respect to participation in intercollegiate athletics, including any law, rule, regulation, requirement, standard, or other provision that relates to the right of a student athlete to receive compensation or other payments or benefits directly or indirectly from any institution, associated entity, or individual, conference, or interstate intercollegiate athletic association.
So is there a yes or no answer to my question?
There's more. 10.2 limits or restricts a right provided to an institution, a conference, or an interstate intercollegiate athletic association under this act, and requires a release of or license to use the name, image, and likeness rights of any individual participant or group of participant in an intercollegiate athletic competition.
Thank you, Counsel, because I read the text, and that it's complicated. That's why I want to just ask that simple question. And I just did, one example is a sexual harassment issue, which there have been many cases like that, unfortunately, across athletics. So would this preemption and the liability shield, would it bar a student athlete from bringing that kind of claim that is currently authorized by state law?
As mentioned in Section 10 preemption section, it's as it relates to the bill.
So is that a yes or a no?
It's as it relates to everything aforementioned, so
All right, so
governing compensation, pay.
What if there's a coach or a staff member sexually harasses a student athlete, and the state law says they can bring it, but the institution then, this has unfortunately happened as well, the institution punishes the athlete because they want to protect the coach, then and that impacts their ability to receive compensation. Would a student athlete be able to bring that kind of case, or does it, under this broad preemption and liability shield, would that suit never even make it, never see the light of day? Be subject to a motion to dismiss?
As mentioned, the preemption section 1, 2, 3, 4, and otherwise related to this act.
And then at the end of the bill, there is kind of a catch-all provision that says, that's very broad, is otherwise related to this act. So that could be very broad as well. So do you see my question, Mr. Chairman, on
Yeah,
this?
and
That this is, we need to be careful with I think there is some interest in having preemption, but if you're also, I'm not interested in taking away the rights of student athletes that are sexually harassed, abused, or if there is another, say there's another cause of action for fraud. The answer that I'm taking away from counsel's answer is yes, that those kind of cases could be barred from
Well, let's,
coming forward.
I'll work with you on that, because obviously that's not the intent.
Okay. Thank you.
Let's,
I've run out of,
between now and the next markup, okay?
thank you. I
I
yield back my
appreciate that
time.
very much. Thank you. All right, any further discussion? Yes, Mr. Soto, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We all could agree college sports are fundamental to our American way of life, and I agree we do need consistent rules of the road for name, image, and likeness in college sports, otherwise known as NIL. And I agree we should have a revenue sharing pool to help out with these many sports. You mentioned that 16 different sports will be protected. In addition, authorizing NIL rights for students is critical. And access to medical coverage, academic support, and scholarship protections, all important. However, exempting student athletes from state and federal labor laws proves fatal. When we're looking at the limited liability conditions, those are also concerning. This bill creates an official statutory monopoly for the NCAA after the Supreme Court struck that down. And while I'm supportive of that general principle, I don't think enough is given in return by way of duties to give this fundamental distinction of being a monopoly. This bill bans student athletes from First Amendment rights to form unions, also guaranteed by the National Labor Relations Act. I constantly hear we should be making government more like the private sector. Well, every major sports league has a players' union. America loves our college sports. We love our college athletes. And so let's ensure that our student athletes, they have basic rights like the right to organize. The ability to negotiate and better liability rules will ensure this bill will be more flexible to the many challenges we foresee today and that we don't foresee in the future, and also make it more likely that this bill becomes bipartisan and lasting. And so I'm deeply concerned today, but I'd like to get to yes, like a lot of us here today are talking about, whether it's the issues that are brought up by many of my colleagues or this one point. And so I'm hoping, Mr. Chairman, we can continue to work on this and maybe get a bipartisan product before we get to the full committee markup. And I yield back.
Is there any further discussion? Yes, sir. Ms. Trahan, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move to strike the last word? Yeah, move to strike the last word. Thank you. And I just want to put a little bit of punctuation on what we're giving away and the process by which I would argue we should undertake before doing that. I mean, I have a hard time believing that if we grant the NCAA and powerful conferences the sweeping antitrust exemption that currently exists in the bill, Congress is going to come back and revisit it if they overreach. I mean, once we give this shield to an organization like the NCAA, we won't get that power back. I would suggest that at the very least, we more narrowly tailor this exemption to precisely what's in the House settlement, which is what the association initially asked for, and that we institute a sunset provision. We can make it 10 years to coincide with the expiration of the House settlement. We could make it 9 years to line up with the NCAA's next media rights negotiation. Either way, let's make them prove to us that they deserve this shield. It will be a check on their power and a way for Congress to address issues that arise in college athletics over the next decade. I yield back.
The gentlelady yields back if there's no further Mr. Pallone, you're recognized for 5 minutes.
Strike the last word. I yield now to the gentleman from Florida, Ms. Castor.
Thank you, Mr. Pallone, for yielding the time. And I just wanted to say to Rep. Tran, that is a great idea to sunset something that would kind of keep the pressure on the NCAA to do the right thing, that would keep Congress involved, our appropriate oversight authority. And Chairman Bilirakis, was a sunset considered before?
We could always come back and review it next year without putting the sunset clause in there. It's not in there now at this particular time.
Okay, I was curious about that. I think that would be very smart. Also, Mr. Chairman, I wonder also what is contained in the bill that encourages or incentivizes student athletes to actually get their college education? I'm just curious. A lot of folks at home, when they say we're dealing with NIL and student athletes, a lot of people comment to me and say, you know, I'd really hope that student athletes are not just professional athletes, that they are student athletes and they have the ability to attend school. They're not just focused on sports, but they are able to obtain their college degree or
and that's certainly our goal. When you read the bill, there is language in there encouraging our amateur athletes. That's what they are, and that's what we want to keep is the amateur status. But there is language in there incentivizing, encouraging, and helping with studies, with life lessons, what have you. So I believe that there's adequate language there incentivizing these athletes, because after all, that's what they're there for, is
maybe
getting
council
a good
can point me-
education. So if you'd like to, if you can read the bill, I'll be happy to work with you, possibly to strengthen it, but I think it's adequate.
Can the council point, I'm curious, because I read through it, and what can I share with folks back home that ask this question? What is in the SCORE Act that really incentivizes or encourages student athletes and institutions to focus on the education of these students?
Thank you for the question, ma'am. I believe that would be a policy question, but Section 5 has certain requirements applicable to certain institutions, which includes providing comprehensive academic support and career counseling services to student athletes that include life skills development programs with respect to mental health, including alcohol and substance abuse, strength and conditioning, nutrition, name, image, likeness rights, including related legal advice, financial literacy, including taxes, career readiness and counseling, the process for transferring between institutions, sexual violence prevention. Subsection 2 provides medical and health benefits to student athletes.
Thank you, council. So what I'm taking away that you agree that that is an important goal, and maybe we can work together to kind of hone in, as we're going to be working with the other committee as well, kind of hone in and see what else we can be doing to encourage that these student athletes have every opportunity to attend class, to get their college education, and to obtain their degree.
That's the goal.
Okay.
That's definitely the goal.
Okay, thank you. I yield back.
Yeah, and our side wants to work with you on that as well. But again, you know, amateur athletes, and so you want employment, with all due respect, but then you want the amateur athletes, and the goal is obviously the priorities for them to get a good education. So I'll be happy to work with you on it. Yes, the chairman of the full committee. Is that correct? Oh, I thought you had your hand up. I guess you didn't. All right. No problem. Yeah, you talk with your hands like I do. Anyone else here? All right, let's go ahead and, if there's no further discussion, the vote occurs on the amendment. All those in favor shall signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. Okay, the nays have it, and the amendment is not agreed. Okay, the chair. Okay, the chair requests a roll call vote. The gentlelady requests a recorded vote. The clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Fulcher? No. Mr. Fulcher votes no. Mr. Dunn? Mr. Dunn votes no. Mrs. Kamick? Mr. Obernolte? Mr. Obernolte votes no. Mr. James? Mr. Bentz? Mr. Bentz votes no. Mrs. Houchin? Mrs. Houchin votes no. Mr. Fry? Mr. Fry votes no. Ms. Lee? Mr. Kane? Mr. Kane votes no. Mr. Evans? Mr. Evans votes no. Mr. Goldman? Mr. Goldman votes no. Mr. Guthrie? Mr. Guthrie votes no. Ms. Schakowsky?
Aye.
Ms. Schakowsky votes aye. Ms. Castor? Ms. Castor votes aye. Mr. Soto? Mr. Soto votes aye. Mr. Han? Mr. Han votes aye. Mr. Mullen? Mr. Mullen votes aye. Ms. Clarke? Ms. Clarke votes aye. Mrs. Dingell? Mrs. Dingell votes aye. Mr. Vesey? Ms. Kelly? Ms. Kelly votes aye. Ms. Schreier? Ms. Schreier votes aye. Mr. Pallone? Mr. Pallone votes aye. Mr. Bilirakis? Mr. Bilirakis votes no.
And I believe Ms. Lee, how is Ms. Lee recorded?
Ms. Lee is not recorded. Ms. Lee votes no.
Anyone else on the Democrat side? Anybody on the Republican side? Okay, the amendment is not agreed to. Well, you can you can tell us exactly the yeas and nays, please.
Mr. Chairman, on that vote, there were 10 ayes and 12 noes.
Okay. The amendment is not agreed to. Are there any further amendments? Yes, Ms. Trahan, you're recognized.
Thank you,
to
Mr. Chairman. I have an
discuss your
amendment at the desk titled Trahan 27.
The clerk will report the amendment.
Amendment to H.R. 4312, offered by Ms. Trahan. Page 18, strike line 6 through 22. Page 25, after line 15, insert the following, and redesignate subsequent sections accordingly. Section 8, enforcement.
Without objection, the reading of the amendment is dispensed with, and Gentle Lady is recognized for 5 minutes in support of her amendment.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chairman. My amendment would give athletes and enforcers real tools to hold bad actors accountable. It would allow the FTC to enforce the SCORE Act by treating violations as an unfair and deceptive act. It would also give state attorneys general the ability to bring civil action on behalf of student athletes enrolled at institutions in their states. And if government enforcers lag, under my amendment, athletes would possess a private right of action to seek relief when all other avenues fail. Listen, I appreciate the chairman's attempt to codify athletes' NIL rights and institute baseline requirements on institutions, particularly on health and safety. And as I've made clear in this markup, although I think those provisions could go further, they are a reasonable start. But I must ask the obvious question. Regardless of the scope of athletes' rights or the level of requirement on the NCAA or schools, where is the enforcement? What if schools infringe on an athlete's NIL right? What if a university fails to uphold its health and safety commitments? And especially if we're granting broad exemptions from antitrust liability, how else can violations be held to account? A right that is legally unenforceable is not a right at all. It's just words on a piece of paper. And I know that my friends on the other side of the aisle understand this because just 2 months ago, we moved a piece of legislation called the Take It Down Act through this committee. The Take It Down Act, which was later signed into law, didn't just require online platforms to take down non-consensual intimate imagery. Its authors explicitly tasked the FTC with enforcement authority. I suspect it's because they knew that without enforcement, the bill would just be a bunch of empty requirements. My amendment would set up a modest enforcement mechanism for the SCORE Act at the federal, state, and individual level. It would simply ensure that the rights and requirements in the bill aren't left toothless by a dearth of enforcement. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
Thank you. And any further discussion on the amendment? Mr. Fry, you're recognized.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I
5
move
minutes.
to strike the last word.
You're recognized.
Mr. Chairman, the SCORE Act would create a much-needed national framework for college sports that offers the stability, clarity, and transparency that stakeholders, including college athletes themselves, have been calling for. The proposed amendment, however, would undermine the SCORE Act and put college athletics on an unsustainable ground, much like they currently are now. The amendment creates a new private right of action that enriches trial lawyers rather than protecting students. And if you look at the recent House settlement, $500 million went to the pockets of the lawyers vis-a-vis attorney fees. Think about that. $500 million that could have gone to supporting hardworking college athletes instead of paying for a lawyer's second home. This amendment should be titled the Trial Lawyer Protection Amendment. The SCORE Act puts students front and center. This amendment puts trial attorneys front and center. I urge my colleagues to vote no.
Will the gentleman yield? Will the gentleman yield?
I yield back to the chair.
Oh.
Any further discussion on the amendment? Yeah, you're recognized, Ms. Castor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I think Rep. Trahan's amendment is very well taken because here we have with the House settlement, the court settlement, and the SCORE Act, you have a total rewrite of college athletics. So now universities can directly pay student athletes. This is setting up along with the settlement, the court settlement, revenue sharing, and then athletes can also still have outside name, image, and likeness deals. Okay, so what happens under revenue sharing if a college or university says, okay, we're going to pay the student athlete, and they never do? What is the recourse? Because they're reading the SCORE Act, that was one thing that really jumped out to me. Okay, how does a student athlete appeal a decision or enforce this? And there's just nothing there. And then if you read it along with that very broad preemption section and liability shield, there really is no recourse at all for the student athletes. So I think this is an important question. It's a reasonable question. If you really want to help student athletes, this is just something that's fairly routine. Mr. Chairman, is this something else, another one of the issues that we can possibly work on together before the hearing, the markup next week?
We'll discuss it, but I will tell you this, that basically if the school violates this particular policy that's in the bill, the antitrust exemption will be removed.
That's why, and that's a good point. Too, that kind of goes back to Rep. Tran's previous amendment or idea on sunsetting this. That might be one avenue. But I'll yield the balance of my time to Rep. Tran.
Thank you.
You recognize?
Thank you, Congresswoman, for yielding. I just want to make sure I heard that right. What is going to be the governance in terms of revoking the antitrust
Well,
exemption?
I'm making a statement, and it's in the bill, the particular bill at hand, that if there's a violation of this particular legislation by the school, then the antitrust exemption will be removed. So that's an enforcement mechanism, as far as I'm concerned.
Okay, so I would have a lot of questions, and maybe we can work this out in the time, I guess it's a week, that we have between now and when this gets marked up full committee. I mean, there isn't a plan for enforcement, and what I'm unclear on is who's actually going to bring that violation, who's actually going to enforce that violation, and then the exemption that gets revoked, is that the whole antitrust exemption that is applying to the conferences and to the NCAA is no longer? I mean, I don't read the bill that way, so I just want to get clear.
Let's, again, I want to talk to you about this. Okay. So let's set a time.
I just want to make, we are.
No, listen, you're making a legitimate
Okay, I appreciate that.
request, and let's make it better if we possibly can.
And one thing that while I have the time, because
go
I
ahead.
want to compel the rest of the committee on this, there is no enforcement mechanism. There is no recourse right now for states or for individuals. There is a liability shield into perpetuity with no sunset, no revisiting by Congress. And so I want us all to, understand that deeply before we go ahead. Because it doesn't feel pro-player to me. It doesn't feel like this is an extension of athletes' rights. It feels like we're putting a couple of modest player protections in a bill based on what we know right now, and not being able to revisit it later, and not giving them tools to advocate for themselves.
Gentle lady who yield, I'll be happy to work with you on this, but again, if the terms of the agreement is violated, the antitrust exemption will be removed. So I think there is an enforcement mechanism, but we can have further discussion.
So
Mr.
this
Chair,
was,
will you yield?
I think this was my time, and
Okay.
that, with all due respect, Mr. Chairman, that's not going to be good enough for the student athlete that doesn't want to get into it for revocation of the whole liability sheet. They just want fairness. They want to be paid what they entered into. They want enforcement of the contract. They want their scholarship that they were promised. It's that kind of basic student enforcement. And I'll yield to the chairman of the committee. Well,
Gentle lady's time has expired. I'm going to recognize the chairman of the full committee, Mr. Guthrie.
So my understanding how it works, and I'm talking to my good friend here, Mr. Fry, on the Judiciary Committee, who's working on the judiciary side of this, is so currently, I know that there's been schools that advertise, we're going to pay this player $9 million. That's one real example. and then the money never comes to fruition, it never happens, or a player takes money and they show up at a school, then they transfer before the end of the year. And that's supposed to try to get a handle on that, where schools deliver what they promise and then players live up to their contract. So my understanding is, as the NIL contracts are individual. So if I'm a great athlete and you got to tie it. I mean, if you're the star player at Kentucky, you're probably worth more money than if you're a star player at another school, but not in basketball. So that decreases your value. I get it. But those are individual contracts with individual groups. So the revenue sharing, my understanding is schools are going to have contracts with these students. And so the students can, so this doesn't supersede any contract. So if a player chooses to come to University of Kentucky and said, here's your $500,000 for playing here, and then they don't pay, then they still have rights and contracts. Understand that to my counsel here.
Will the gentleman yield?
Sure.
That's my understanding.
That's what we want to have happen, so we need to make sure.
I think then
You're recognized.
I think that the SCORE Act would then need to spell that out. And then they're thinking through all of those situations for the student athletes and the institutions on how they're going to enforce. But right now, it's silent on that.
Well, this doesn't, to spell out, it's like, it doesn't, contract law is still contract law. So I know you're an attorney.
But not when you have a broad preemption where the language says you're preempting all state laws, rules, regulations. So that obviously needs to be clarified, because that would not be consistent with my understanding or your understanding.
Okay, I'll yield to my friend from South Carolina.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for yielding. I think the liability shield actually just talks about antitrust laws or other similar state laws related to antitrust. I don't think, to the chairman's point earlier, if you have a violation of a contract, you still have a private right of action to enforce the terms of that contract. And so I think we're getting ahead of our skis here. This deals with antitrust specifically, or similar rules, laws, and regulations on books for states. But for a traditional violation of contract, those things would still be in play.
I see my good friend from Massachusetts itching to say something, so go right ahead.
Well, because we're ignoring the combination of the liability shield and preemption. So I just don't understand, what recourse does the athlete have when you have those two together? And maybe the general counsel would just read the liability, section 7, because that's where it all becomes very vague, but yet very clear that there is no enforcement mechanism and there is no recourse for the athletes.
You're recognized.
Thank you, ma'am. Section 7, liability limitation, compliance with this act, and the adoption of, agreement to, compliance with, or enforcement of any rule, regulation, requirement, standard, or other provision established pursuant to or in compliance with this act shall be treated as lawful under the antitrust laws and any similar state law, rule, regulation, requirement, standard, or other provision having the force and effect of law.
And so then I would just ask the question, I don't mean to interrupt, but who determines compliance with?
So I can, in the definition section, antitrust laws, the term antitrust laws has the meaning given to such term in the first section of the Clayton Act, 15 U.S. Code 12, and Section 5 of the Federal Trade Commission Act, 15 U.S. Code 45, to the extent that such Section 5 applies to unfair methods of competition.
Still not clear on who, who is going to determine who's going to be compliant with this. I think that is where we need to start this conversation. If we can continue to debate this amendment, but I would just argue that it's silent on that. There is no enforcement mechanism in this bill. There is no recourse for athletes. If there's no injunctive relief, there's nothing. They have no place to go. If all the things that we spell out in this bill, which are meager at best, are not honored.
Okay, well, again, yeah,
Thanks.
the
So,
chairman wants to address this.
Well, so it's still my time. So we want to make sure this is clarified. So the idea is that you have currently schools promising players money, not delivering. You have players receiving money and then transferring. Yeah. That's the current. So we're trying to even the playing field where there can be contracts. Now the limit is the $20 million that can be revenue shared by the school, and how that's divided up by contract. And we just need to make sure. So that's, for your points are well taken, and we want to make sure the law does what we want it, the bill does what we are all expecting it to do or hoping that it does, or want it to do, and we need to make sure the language is clear. It says compliant, what my chairman was talking about, it says compliance with the act and adoption of agreement, so you have to comply with the act to get the protections. And that would be, somebody could sue and go to court, they have a right of action, say the school's not complying with the act. So that, but if we need to clarify, be more clear, then we can do that. We can work on it together.
I pledge to you.
I'll
that
yield back my time.
We will work on this together. 'Cause-
I'll yield back, Chair.
Yeah. All right, I'm going to, and again, like what Mr. Fry said, this is contract law, and you have a private right of action. We're not taking that away with regard to the contract. All right, I'll yield 5 minutes to the chairman or the ranking member of the full committee, Mr. Pallone.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, I want to go back to my opening statement in light of the debate that we've had here for the last couple of hours, and then ask the chairman, I guess, of the full committee, an issue here. You know, what I said in my opening statement was that I believe very strongly that the courts had basically framed what's been going on now with college athletes and the issues that the SCORE Act tries to address, and that we shouldn't get in the way. In other words, I don't think we should have a bill at all, because I think that the history of college sports and the NCAA is to simply exploit the athletes. And that exploitation, I'm afraid, would continue with this bill. We'd be much better off letting the courts and what we've had now for the last few years continue to frame, to set the framework. Anything else, I worry, would simply lead to more exploitation of athletes. I heard the gentleman from South Carolina, in no disrespect, criticize the fact that NCAA and the colleges are spending so much money on lawyers. Well, the only reason that we've had success and ended the exploitation to some extent of college athletes is because they've been able to go to the courts and use the lawyers and make their case. That's what the system's all about. That's what the rule of law is all about in democracy. So to suggest that somehow that's a bad thing because the colleges or NCAA has to spend money, well, that's too bad. They were the bad guys. They were the ones that were exploiting the athletes. They should have been spending money defending themselves. Unfortunately, they failed no matter how much money they spent. Setting this framework legislatively, I don't believe is going to help. However, I do recognize that many of my colleagues on the Democratic side do feel that if this bill was amended and it was clarified, and that's what the debate has been about for the last 2 hours, that they might be willing to support the bill. The problem that I see, though, is that my understanding, Mr. Chairman, Chairman Guthrie, is that you're ready to go to full committee on this next week because after that we have the August recess. I would ask, you don't have to say yes now, but I would ask that not happen. I think it's quite clear, based on the debate, that this bill is not ready to go to the full committee. And if you're seeking to have members, and even possibly myself, support a bill, there have to be some major changes and major clarification of what is going on here, which is not the case. So I would ask, you don't have to answer now, that we not go to full committee. This is not ready at this point. I'm sure the rest of the debate today will even make that more clear. If you'd like to, if I'd yield to the chairman if he likes, but you don't have to answer right
And I'm not going to commit to a schedule on this, but I take your comments under advisement. We want to get this right. We want to make sure it's correct. We feel like we have a strong bill. If we need to clarify what the intent, I do believe, because it says that you have to comply with the act to get these protections. If you go through the act, you have to provide comprehensive academic support, medical benefits, grant and aid provided to student athletes. You have to have if you go to have 12 varsity sports, says we're only going to have 12 because we can't afford 16, you're not complying with the act. So I think it's in there, but we'll take the time to make sure we get it right. And I'm not going to commit to a timeline because we need to discuss it, but I appreciate your comments.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back, Mr. Chairman.
Gentleman yields back. And again, I think we're doing pretty well here today in these discussions. and this markup in making the bill even better. So the input has been very productive as far as I'm concerned. So we need to move forward. We have the ranking member of the subcommittee, Ms. Schakowsky, is recognized for 5 minutes.
Mr. Chairman, I think it's so clear now through all the discussion and the issues that have been raised on the Democratic side that this bill is not ready for prime time. And it seems to me that if we want to have a bill that really addresses the needs of our the needs that we've been talking about, that we cannot say that this should be voted on. And I think that we need to agree to that and not to move ahead until we get these questions all answered. They're all very, very relevant, and it would be a mistake to move ahead.
Let me remind the lady, if the gentle lady will yield, that this is a bipartisan bill. And I know there's several members on the Democrat side that are interested in co-sponsoring the bill. And they've told me that they're really happy with the product, but they want to work further with us. So I think we're making a great deal of progress. And I really think that the system is broken and it does require legislation. Okay? Will the gentlelady yield? She yields back?
Yes.
You yield back, okay. If there's no further discussion, the vote occurs on the amendment. All those in favor shall signify by saying aye. All those opposed, nay.
Mr. Chairman, we want a roll call.
Okay, the gentleman requests a roll call vote. So the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Fulcher? Mr. Fulcher votes no. Mr. Dunn? Mrs. Kamick? Mr. Obernolte? Mr. Obernolte votes no. Mr. James? Mr. Bentz? Mr. Bentz votes no. Mrs. Houchin? Mr. Fry? Mr. Fry votes no. Ms. Lee? Ms. Lee votes no. Mr. Kane? Mr. Kane? Mr. Kane votes no. Mr. Evans? Mr. Evans votes no. Mr. Goldman? Mr. Goldman votes no. Mr. Guthrie? Mr. Guthrie votes no. Ms. Schakowsky?
Yes.
Ms. Schakowsky votes aye. Ms. Castor? Yes. Ms. Castor votes aye. Mr. Soto? Aye. Mr. Soto votes aye. Mr. Han? Mr. Han votes aye. Mr. Mullen? Mr. Mullen votes aye. Ms. Clarke? Ms. Clarke votes aye. Mrs. Dingell? Mrs. Dingell votes aye. Mr. Veazey? Ms. Kelly? Ms. Schreier? Ms. Schreier votes aye. Mr. Pallone? Aye. Mr. Pallone votes aye. Chairman Bilirakis?
No.
Chairman Bilirakis votes no.
Kelly?
Mr. Dunn is not recorded. Mr. Dunn votes no. Mrs. Houchin is not recorded. Ms. Houchin votes no. Mr. James is not recorded. Mr. James votes no.
Anybody here? We're good? Ms. Kelly, how is she recorded?
Ms. Kelly is not recorded. Ms. Kelly votes aye.
All right, the clerk will report the result.
Mr. Chairman, on that vote, there were 10 ayes and 13 noes.
The amendment is not agreed to. Are there further amendments?
Mr. Chairman.
Ms. Trey?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have an amendment at the desk titled Trahan 24. I recognized. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. this amendment in, oh, okay.
Clerk will report the amendment.
Oh,
Amendment to H.R. 4312, offered by Mr. Han. Page 29, strike line 1 and all that follows through line 3 on page 30 and insert the following. Section 10, preemption. No state or political
Without
subdivision.
objection, the reading of the amendment is dispensed with. The gentlelady is recognized for 5 minutes in support of the amendment.
thank you, Mr. Chairman. This amendment ensures that while the SCORE Act would preempt conflicting state laws and bring regulatory clarity for athletes and institutions, it also includes a savings clause. That is a deliberate carve-out allowing states to go further in protecting college athletes and strengthening their rights if states so choose. As I mentioned earlier, the current preemption language creates a low ceiling for athlete protections. It effectively blocks states from enacting laws that build on this bill's foundation and offer stronger safeguards to student athletes. Right now, 32 states, red, blue, and purple alike, have passed laws that reflect the will of their constituents and the needs of college athletes in their jurisdictions. Those state laws have been passed in good faith to protect young athletes. They would be wiped off the books if this bill becomes law in its current form. And any future attempts by states to raise the bar would be prohibited as well. Now, I understand the intent behind preemption, to bring order to the patchwork of laws governing name, image, and likeness. And as a former college athlete and a first-generation college graduate, I appreciate that goal. I know how overwhelming it would be to navigate a complex legal landscape on top of choosing a school, weighing scholarship offers, and thinking about your future, both on and off the court. But we can achieve national consistency without undermining states' rights or suppressing stronger protections. That's why I'm offering this amendment, to make clear that the SCORE Act should be a floor and not a ceiling. It should establish baseline rights for college athletes nationwide while giving states the freedom to do more. I appreciate the chairman's willingness to engage on this issue when we spoke yesterday. I hope we can either adopt this amendment today or use it as a starting point for improvements as this bill moves through the legislative process. I urge my colleagues to support this amendment and to stand with student athletes across the country. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
I want to thank my colleague from Massachusetts for offering this amendment. The preemption language in Section 10 of the SCORE Act is critical to the overall integrity of this legislation. Without a clear, uniform national framework, we risk continuing the patchwork of state laws that is already creating confusion and uncertainty for student athletes, universities, and athletic associations across the country. That said, I hear the gentlelady's concerns. I believe this is an area where we can find common ground. I remain committed to working in a bipartisan manner to get this right. Therefore, I would respectfully ask the gentlelady if she would be willing to withdraw her amendment today so that we can continue working together in good faith to address her concerns prior to the committee markup.
I appreciate that offer, and I accept. I'll withdraw the amendment.
Any further discussion on this amendment? This has been withdrawn. Is there any other amendments? Where are we here? Mr. Mullen is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have an amendment at the desk, underscored 026.
Clerk will read the amendment. We'll report the amendment.
Amendment to H.R. 4312, offered by Mr. Mullen. Page 17, line 1.
Without objection, the reading of the amendment is dispensed with. The gentleman is recognized for 5 minutes in support of the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The college sports landscape is changing at a breakneck pace. And through all this change, Congress is entering the fray to determine what the federal government's role will be in this new landscape. I'm deeply concerned that the SCORE Act prioritizes regulatory certainty for schools and athletic conferences over protections for college athletes. That is particularly evident in the bill's lack of provisions to prevent abuses from predatory agents. This bill, as written, only requires agents to register with athletic associations. A name on a list doesn't protect a student from a predatory contract or a bad actor with hidden conflicts of interest. My amendment, co-led by Mr. Vesey, aims to close this serious gap in the SCORE Act to better protect college athletes from predatory agents. Thank you to Mr. Vesey for your partnership on this important issue. First, my amendment would codify that agents representing college athletes have a fiduciary duty to act in the best interests of their clients. College athletes are often teenagers and young adults who have limited experience when it comes to fully understanding contracts or financial arrangements. As they navigate this increasingly complex landscape, their agents should be legally obligated to put the athlete's interests first, just like any other financial representative. Second, my amendment would direct the FTC to study the implications of establishing an independent entity to certify and regulate agents who represent college athletes. In professional leagues like the NFL or the NBA, players' associations regulate agents. If professional sports already recognize the importance of independent oversight of agents, it is only logical that we examine how a similar structure could work in college sports. My amendment ensures that college athletes have proper representation. I urge adoption of the amendment, and I yield back.
Would the gentleman yield to me remaining time? Mr. Mullen?
Yes, yielding to.
I just wanted to support the amendment because it addresses a real issue facing college athletes and some athletes who are even younger. The issue of these sleazy agents talking young clients into contracts that are not in the client's best interest. The SCORE Act does not provide meaningful protections for athletes against greedy agents or predatory contracts. And this amendment offers two common-sense first steps to addressing these problems. First, it requires that an agent act in the best interests of the athlete. And second, it directs the Federal Trade Commission to conduct a study of how we can best create a third-party certification process for agents. So this amendment offers important steps in the right direction of protecting college athletes from agents acting in bad faith, and they are out there. So I urge my colleagues to support the amendment and yield back to Mr. Mullen. Thank you.
Thank you. The chairman does recognize and thank the gentleman from California for offering this amendment. And this is another one of those areas where we believe there is common ground. And would suggest and respectfully ask the gentleman from California to be willing to withdraw with the commitment to work forward on this moving forward.
With that commitment, Mr. Chair, yes, certainly I'll withdraw.
Thank you. Appreciate your willingness so much to cooperate on this. Is there any further amendments? Okay, seeing none. Question now occurs on forwarding H.R. 4312 to the full committee. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed? With that incredible response, all those opposed, no? The ayes have it, the bill's agreed to, a roll call has been requested. Clerk will call a roll.
Mr. Fulcher? Mr. Fulcher votes aye. Mr. Dunn? Mr. Dunn votes aye. Mrs. Kamick? Mr. Obernolte? Mr. James? Mr. James? Mr. James votes aye. Mr. Bentz? Mr. Bentz votes aye. Mrs. Houchin? Mrs. Houchin votes aye. Mr. Fry? Mr. Fry votes aye. Ms. Lee? Ms. Lee votes aye. Mr. Kane? Mr. Kane votes aye. Mr. Evans? Mr. Goldman? Mr. Guthrie? Mr. Guthrie votes aye. Ms. Schakowsky? Ms. Schakowsky votes no. Ms. Castor? Ms. Castor votes no. Mr. Soto? Mr. Soto votes no. Mr. Hand? Mr. Hand votes no. Mr. Mullen? Mr. Mullen votes no. Ms. Clarke? Ms. Clarke votes no. Mrs. Dingell? Mrs. Dingell votes no. Mr. Vesey? Mr. Vesey votes no. Ms. Kelly? Ms. Kelly votes no. Ms. Schreier? Ms. Schreier votes no. Mr. Pallone? Mr. Pallone votes no. Mr. Bilirakis? Mr. Bilirakis votes aye.
Has Mr. Goldman reported?
Mr. Goldman is not recorded. Mr. Goldman votes aye.
Ms. Houchin reported? How's Ms. Houchin reported?
Ms. Houchin is recorded as aye.
How has Mr. Guthrie reported?
Mr. Guthrie is recorded as aye.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Guthrie. Has Mr. Bilirakis reported?
Mr. Bilirakis is recorded as aye.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, what?
I think this is called irregular order. Come on. How's Mr. Obernolte recorded?
Mr. Obernolte is not recorded. Mr. Obernolte votes aye.
Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Fulcher, on that vote, there were 12 ayes and 11 noes.
With the ayes having it, the bill is adopted. Without objection, staff is authorized to make technical and confirming changes to the legislation approved by the committee today. So ordered. Without objection, the committee stands adjourned.